What's going on, guys? Welcome back to this week's episode of Film Time with Fava. This is episode 5. That's right, we've made it to 5 episodes, and I am so pleased to be saying that. Thank you all for watching. We've been getting massive amounts of views on Twitter especially, and yeah, I just want to thank everyone for that. I'm your host, Anthony Fava. Now, let's get right into this week's episode, which is going to be a preparation episode for next week, when I will be doing an MCU roundtable with a friend of mine in, once again, preparation for my review of Marvel's Black Widow, which releases next Friday. But I believe I will be doing the review the following Friday, which will be filled with spoilers, of course, but I will be giving my opinion on Black Widow then. So for now, this week, I'm going to be ranking every MCU movie. As you may see, if you're watching this on video, I'm repping the Fred VanVleet throwback jersey. Favorite jersey in my collection, Fred VanVleet right now. Second favorite Raptor after Kyle Lowry. We all know the GOAT. But yeah, let's get right into this week's episode. So in total, there are 23 movies I'm going to be going over. I will not be going over the Disney Plus series, as I feel like those are relatively new and they don't really follow the same structure as the movies per se, as they are episodic and include more content. If I had to rank the shows, though, right now, I would say my least favorite was WandaVision. Second favorite was Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and so far Loki is my favorite, even though it's not done. That last episode was my favorite Marvel Disney Plus episode yet. Falcon and the Winter Soldier and WandaVision, still awesome, but Loki's looking like it's going to be my favorite. So now let's get into my list of my top 23 MCU movies. These are all the ones that have been released thus far, not including Black Widow, which releases next Friday, as I said. So at number 23, we have... Sorry, I think my dog is barking. Also, sorry, there's rain and thunder outside, so if you hear any weird noises, that's what it is. So at number 23 on this list, we have The Incredible Hulk. This should come as no surprise. This is the worst MCU movie, and in my opinion, it's not even close. Edward Norton kind of seemed a bit out of place as Bruce Banner in general. The CGI was all right for the time, but the story just wasn't great. They tried to set up a lot of stuff. The Iron Man inclusion at the end was good, but it couldn't really save this movie. They tried to throw in some Easter eggs, like with Edward Norton having the purple pants and holding them up. But the movie just didn't land well, and it's no surprise that we haven't seen Edward Norton as the Hulk since. I don't know if it was, I think it was just more a money thing and just him not wanting to play the Hulk. But I think it's no surprise that we haven't received a solo Hulk movie since then, and it's because the second movie that came out in the MCU was this movie, and it didn't do that great. But that brings us to the second worst movie in the MCU, which may come as a surprise that I'm putting this one below another one from the same series. And at number 22, we have the original Thor. Now, many people think Thor the Dark World is the worst Thor movie, but I beg to differ. I think the first one was the worst one. Now, the story just didn't seem to have a whole lot of stakes. And by that I mean Thor gets sent to Earth. I guess that's a big stake, sure. He gets banished by his father. Yeah, great. But I think it's because it doesn't seem to be connected to what we've seen in The Incredible Hulk and Iron Man at all. We see this new world, but it just seems like kind of a generic medieval kingdom. It didn't really do a whole lot for me. And at this stage in Thor's movie career, he was just such a serious and boring character, in my opinion. The only saving grace of this movie for me was Loki, Tom Hiddleston, who's an amazing villain. He shows up again in Avengers and throughout the MCU. One of the greatest characters in the MCU, in my opinion, is Loki and Thor, but later on, rather than his earlier appearances in movies like the first Thor. I know some people that really like the first Thor, but I just don't think it's for me. I'll watch it. I'll enjoy it to an extent, but in the grand scheme of the MCU, I think it is the second worst of the bunch. At 21, we have the second Thor movie, which is Thor the Dark World. Now, this movie has a lot more stakes to it and a lot more connections to the rest of the MCU, as it takes place after the first Avengers movie. We see the first appearance of the Reality Stone in the form of the Ether. which gets absorbed by Natalie Portman. Natalie Portman. And yeah, there were some great set pieces and shots in this scene. I especially love the Star Wars esque um, spaceship kind of fighter ship fights that they had with all the lasers and the Dark Elves. That's cool. I also really like the story of the Dark Elves. I liked how they went into Asgard's past in the battle they had on Earth with the Dark Elves and how the ether came about and all this. I actually really enjoyed that. I this is one of the MCU movies I hadn't seen yet. So when rewatching it the most previous time around, I watched this one, and I honestly don't get why people say it's as bad as it is. I think it's an okay movie. Obviously, in the grand scheme of the MCU, it is not the best by any means, but I'll watch it. And also, Darcy gets a lot of hate. Kat Dennings' character, she's not that annoying. She's actually very good in WandaVision, actually. Now, next up, this may get some people mad. We have Captain Marvel. So, Captain Marvel, I love a lot of parts of this movie. I love Samuel L. Jackson in his younger form, seeing him as a young agent before he got the eye injury. We see Phil Coulson again, and Brie Larson actually does a very good job in this role. But I feel like the writing just made her kind of really obnoxious and annoying at times. I thought she did a great job in the role. I really feel like it was the writing of her character that just makes her super obnoxious and annoying. And I noticed the same thing in Endgame when she's like, "Well, hey, Peter Parker." Captain Marvel has a lot of potential, which is why I'm very excited for the second movie with Miss Marvel as well and Monica Rambeau. But yeah, this movie, the Skrull characters were a very cool addition to the MCU, as it showed us that maybe some people that we know currently, as we then saw in Far From Home with Nick Fury, might be shape-shifting aliens. That's a cool thing. The villain in this movie, Jude Law, forget his name in the movie, but he didn't really do it for me. The movie's all right. I think it makes sense that it's here on the list. So, number 19, we have Iron Man 2. So, the second Iron Man is the worst Iron Man, in my opinion. Soundtrack is amazing. They got all the AC/DC music in this. I remember I used to have the AC/DC Iron Man 2 soundtrack. There are some great components of this movie. We get to see Tony Stark struggling with alcoholism, and at the same time, um, we get to see a lot of his inventive side when he literally has to invent a new element in order to save himself because the cartridges that he's putting into his arc reactor to power it are slowly killing him through some sort of poisoning to his body. And we also get to see the connection between him and his now deceased father through that, as well as his father basically says, "Hey, like my science and inventions are something that's beyond my time. I can't do that with the technology I have right now." So he leaves him basically a roadmap in the form of a map of the Stark Expo in order to show him how to create this new element. And he follows that. Sorry, there's thunder. Speaking of thunder, thunderstruck. Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of good parts of this movie. But then also at times the villain, Whiplash, whatever, Justin Hammer. I think the villains are where this movie really fails. They had a lot of potential and just really flopped. And the stakes just seem kind of weird. And besides the positive things I mentioned, it's just an alright MCU movie. And then that leads us to number 18, which is Ant-Man and the Wasp. Honestly, from this point on, the movies are really solid, and it's kind of a toss-up where I put each one, besides the top 10, of course. But Ant-Man and the Wasp, I didn't mind at all. It seemed very low stakes, especially, I think, when the movie came out, really, what am I trying to say here? The release date of the movie, it being basically months after Endgame, and not Endgame, Infinity War, really set it up to not have the highest stakes, because we know what's going to happen. We know that half the universe is going to get dusted. But here's the story of Ant-Man and the Wasp going into the quantum realm and help and trying to defeat the Ghost Lady. It makes sense why we needed Ant-Man and the Wasp at that point, because we needed to set up the quantum realm for Endgame. But at the same time, yeah, it's just really low stakes. It's not as good as the first Ant-Man. The Wasp was a cool addition. I'm excited to see what they do with her in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. But for now, I can't put it any higher than it is on this list. So that's why Ant-Man and the Wasp comes in at number 18. And that brings us to number 17, which is Iron Man 3. Now, Iron Man 3 is my second favorite Iron Man movie, as you can tell. And what I really liked about this one, the main thing that I really liked, is that we get to see Tony Stark, not Iron Man, we get to see Tony Stark using his brain. No suit, no nothing. We get to see him shocking people with his like junk glove. He made it out of like scraps. It's like in the first movie, Tony Stark made this in a cave with a bunch of scraps. That's basically what he does this whole movie. He's living in a shed with a kid. He's making these inventions to try and infiltrate the Mandarin's base, which he does successfully. Yeah, the villain in this movie, that's where it really falls apart for me. They set up the Mandarin, who's a very classic not just MCU villain, what am I saying? Marvel villain in general. He's got the 10 rings, the whole bit. They set him up. He looks very comic accurate. It looks like he's a part of a terrorist group. But then they bring in this whole backstory that Tony Stark didn't meet this guy on a balcony on New Year's Eve, and now he's all mad, and then he creates this extremis virus that allows people to superheat themselves, get superhuman strength, and explode. And then he says he's the Mandarin at the end. And also, we're gonna get the real Mandarin in the Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings movie. So that really kind of makes this even less impactful that the Mandarin is present in this movie. It's a good bookend to Tony Stark, but I feel like it was too early to have his last Iron Man movie this early on, as this is the first movie that came out after the Avengers. Yeah, I think the villain is where this movie really fails. The Tony Stark aspects are cool. We get to the PTSD he experiences. This is like one of the first time we've seen any form of PTSD in the MCU. It shows that he's not just Iron Man; he's a human. He went through a wormhole with a missile and almost died. He's gonna have some PTSD, and I like that they showed that. They showed a more human side to these super beings. So then next up, we have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I'm going to try and speed things up a bit here. So Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, it's actually a very solid movie. Ego was all right. Seemed like he kind of just appeared out of nowhere at times, but I digress. The whole story with Yondu and Rocket and trying to find his new fin for the arrow, it was cool. Rocket had his whole thing where he didn't feel like he was appreciated in the group. He didn't feel like he should be alive even. And yeah, that was a cool part too. This is another one of the MCU movies that I didn't actually see until my most recent time watching through the entire MCU. But I thought it was pretty good. Not as good as the first Guardians of the Galaxy, though, in my opinion. It was cool seeing Peter Quill as the Celestial, but yeah, I think it fits well at this spot on the list. So number 15 is one that I think is very underrated. Even though I have it at the 15 spot, I really like this movie. It's Ant-Man, the original Ant-Man. And this is just a great heist movie. I love Paul Rudd in this role. I love Paul Rudd in general. He's a great actor, super hilarious, and he fits so well in the MCU somehow. I never thought I'd say that until I saw him as Ant-Man, but he really owns this role. And oh my god, Michael Pena, I believe it's Michael Pena. I'm sorry if I'm wrong. As Luis, he's so hilarious when he does his fast talking stories, and then the Stanley cameo in this is awesome as well. Yeah, super fine. If you know, you know. But yeah, don't be fooled by the title. This ain't no small movie. Get it? Ant-Man small movie. This is a great little MCU movie. It's a smaller stakes, but it introduces the character of Ant-Man well. It introduces the quantum realm, which is one of the biggest things going forward in the MCU, as it could set up the multiverse, maybe. Sorry, my dog's barking. But yes, that is Ant-Man. It comes in at number 15. Now, number 14, we have Black Panther. Now, I say that with all these are very interchangeable, but Black Panther is a great MCU movie. Without question, Michael B. Jordan and Chadwick Boseman own these roles. I'm scared to see the next Black Panther movie without such a great actor as Chadwick Boseman. Rest in peace to the GOAT, the greatest of all time, the greatest superhero of all time, the Black Panther, Chadwick Boseman. Oh my God, that was tough. Yeah, seeing Wakanda was really cool. Although when they were in the actual, sorry, my dog is going crazy right now. When they were in the actual city of Wakanda, I felt as if it was really underwhelming. Like it just looked like any other city. But then when they were in the big set pieces, like the waterfall fight scenes, those looked like someplace I'd never seen before. When they were in the mountains where Umbaku and I don't know, the Jabari tribe where they live, that was cool. That seemed like something that was unique to that place. But yeah, also the CGI in this movie was not great, especially in the final fight scene. That was some of the worst CGI I've seen in the MCU. Don't get me wrong, Black Panther is a very good movie in the MCU, but it doesn't come close to some of the other movies here, which is why it comes in at number 14. And then at number 13, we have Doctor Strange, which is something that surprised me a lot because I didn't know a whole lot about Doctor Strange before I saw this. And I'm glad I didn't because my expectations were met and exceeded. Benedict Cumberbatch does a great job in this role. I think he was born to play Doctor Strange. I mean, he's Benedict Cumberbatch. He's a great actor. If you haven't seen him in The Imitation Game, go watch that. That's an excellent movie. The visuals in this movie are incredible. I believe it was nominated for the visual effects Oscar. I don't think it won, but it was nominated. Seeing things like the mirror dimension and all the things that the sorcerers do. And it introduces Dormammu and these. Basically, this movie introduced magic to the MCU. We'd seen it with Loki, but this is the first time we'd seen it on Earth and like naturally done by people other than a godly figure. And that was something very cool about this movie. The villain of the movie was a little underwhelming, of course, because he is upstaged by Dormammu. So that fell flat a bit. It introduced one of my favorite characters, Wong, to the MCU. But yeah, there's not a lot bad to say about Doctor Strange. Yeah, it's a solid MCU movie. And then at number 12, this may come as a surprise to some of you who know that Spider-Man, that guy right there, is my favorite superhero. But we have Spider-Man Far From Home. Now, this is a movie, when I saw it in theaters, I was like, wow, this is the greatest MCU movie. But then I watched it a couple more times. And as I did, I saw its flaws. Mysterio wasn't the greatest villain. It was very predictable what was going to happen with him, that he was going to turn evil, because we all know Mysterio is a villain. Like, let's be real, no one actually thought he was going to stay good. I also felt like, once again, as with Homecoming, which is going to be later in this list, that Spider-Man, he sometimes isn't really Spider-Man in the MCU. He's more of a Tony Stark, Iron Man Jr. kind of character that just needs all this help all the time. This movie, he broke out from that a bit, because at the end he does it on his own, well, with the help of Happy, so he doesn't really do it on his own. But yeah, the visuals in this movie were great. Those illusion sequences with Mysterio were very cool. Some of the coolest visuals I've seen in the MCU. The night monkey suit was dope. His new suit with the black on is awesome. And the post-credit scene is something that really got me excited for his next movie. fingers crossed it's a Spider-Verse with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, because that's what the rumors are all saying, and it's looking like it's going to be that way, and that has been a dream of mine. It feels like I'm dreaming, guys. This is like a conspiracy theory come to life. But yeah, Far From Home, solid Spider-Man movie. It's probably my fourth or fifth favorite Spider-Man movie. It's not as good as the first two Tobey Maguire's, not as good as Homecoming in my opinion, and not as good as Spider-Verse. I think it slips into maybe that 5 spot on that list. But on this list, it comes in at number 12. And number 11, we got the original Guardians of the Galaxy. Great movie. The soundtrack, awesome. All the oldies but goodies on Peter Quill's Walkman. Yeah, this was Chris Pratt's coming out party, because this is when he lost all that weight, got shredded for the role, show that he can be a leading man in an action hero movie. Oh, and totally besides that, this had never been seen before in the MCU, because this was we'd seen aliens through the Chitauri invasion and whatnot, and this was after Thor: The Dark World, so I guess we'd seen the Dark Elves, but in this we saw really the outer area of space for the first time. All these alien races and breeds and whatnot. We get introduced to we see Thanos really for the first time. We see him in Avengers in a post-credit scene, but let's be real, that was some pink-looking Thanos. This is the first time we see Thanos as we're gonna see him later on, and it is glorious. This is just a really funny movie. The characters are just insane. Like Groot, awesome. Vin Diesel, give the guy an Oscar. No, I'm kidding. I am Groot. I love when he's on the Jimmy Fallon show and he says in Spanish, he's like, "Yo, soy Groot." Yeah. Bradley. What name am I looking for right now? Bradley Cooper. Why am I saying? I was gonna say Brad Martin. If you know, you know. Yeah, Bradley Cooper is Rocket Raccoon. Dave Bautista as Drax is probably one of my favorite characters in the MCU. He's so funny. Zoe Saldana, I think I got that right, as Gamora. Great character. Comes back a lot. Spoiler alert. Yeah, this movie's amazing, and that's why it comes in at number 11. So now we got our top 10 here. I feel like it's going to be running a little long, so I'm going to try and speed up through the top 10. So number 10, we've got Avengers Age of Ultron. Now, this is my least favorite Avengers movie, and a lot of people give this one a lot of hate. But I really liked this movie because of its villain. Well, that among other things, but its villain Ultron was very cool. It showed the dangers of AI. That's a line by Elon Musk and Rick and Morty. This has been a lesson in the dangers of AI. Yeah, Ultron was a lesson in the dangers of AI. Tony Stark messed up. I like this one because they caused the Avengers, or Tony Stark and Bruce Banner in particular, caused this problem to happen, and they had to stop it, because if they don't, the world's going to end. High stakes, both for their morals and for the world itself. One part of this movie that I loved was when we get to see Captain America nudge Thor's hammer, which sets up a great moment in Endgame, which we will get to later. Yeah, as I said, Ultron, great villain. We get introduced to Wakanda in a small way. We don't actually go to Wakanda, but we hear about Wakanda, and we get to meet Andy Serkis as Ulysses Klaue, who is basically a smuggler of vibranium, and allows for Ultron to make his new vibranium body. And Scarlet Witch, and rest in peace to Quicksilver, because that guy dies real quick. Spoiler alert. We get to see, Scarlet Witch for the first time, who is now going to be a huge part of the MCU going forward, especially after WandaVision and those events. Yeah, this movie was very good. Not as good as the first Avengers, not as good as the last two, as you'll see later in the list. But Avengers Age of Ultron, solid Avengers and MCU movie. And then at number 9, we have the first Spider-Man MCU title, which was Spider-Man Homecoming. Now, when this movie came out, it was one of the most hype movies for me. I had been dreaming. It's like how I dream of Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield being featured in an MCU Spider-Man movie. Seeing Spider-Man in the MCU was just a dream of mine. It was rumored to happen after the Amazing Spider-Man 2 came out, but since that got such poor reviews, they decided, you know what? Let's not move this Spider-Man. Let's make a totally new one. And that's what they did. First introduced in Civil War, and now with his own solo movie at this point in 2017. I really liked this movie. I thought it was a great first movie for Spider-Man. I always like a good origin story, so missing that Uncle Ben portion and seeing how he gets his powers was a little missed for me. But I get why. We've seen it twice before. They don't need to show it again. But yeah, this was great. The Vulture is actually one of my favorite MCU villains. He's just a very human villain. He was a great first villain for Spidey to have, just someone who is very street level, someone that Spider-Man, it's a little out of his pay grade. And the fact that he accomplishes defeating him in the end, even if he doesn't directly defeat him, it's kind of his own machine, the Vultures, that defeats him in the end. But it shows that, yeah, Spider-Man is a hero and he is at that Avengers level, even if he is only supposed to be about 15 in this movie. And seeing him grow and earn Iron Man's trust by the end really showed his journey throughout. And yeah, it's a great Spider-Man movie. I think it's probably either my second or third favorite of the live action Spider-Man movies. But yeah, very good. I think I really have a feeling that the next Spider-Man movie is going to take my top spot of Spider-Man movies, maybe of MCU movies. I swear, if they bring in the two Spider-Man, it might be done. It might be a game over for that. So number 8, we have Captain America: The First Avenger. I This is another MCU movie that I really like. Wow, big surprise in the top 10. I really like it. But this is one of the MCU movies that I'll always go back and watch just because I really love the origin story of Steve Rogers, Captain America. Just a Even without the Captain America aspect, this guy, he's a small guy, so much heart, just wants to fight for what he believes in his country. And there's no better person that could have been chosen to get injected with the super soldier serum than Steve Rogers, truly, because he knows what it's like to be the little guy. And then when he becomes the big guy, he still carries that mentality. He doesn't let the big guy push him around, he helps the little guy. And that was great to see. And he could have easily just kept doing his showman thing, done that. But no, he wanted to help save the world, and he does. And he makes the ultimate sacrifice in the end, or so it seems, as he wakes up in the modern day right before the first Avengers movie. And he's lost everything, but he doesn't let that get him down. He continues on after the movie to fight many more Marvel conflicts. Yeah, just this movie really shows his character from its beginnings and shows why he is who he is and why he's so amazing and why this movie is so amazing, and that's why it comes in at number 8. And similarly, number 7, this may ruffle a few feathers because a lot of people think this is like top MCU movie. We have Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Now, I will admit, I haven't seen the Winter Soldier as much as I have the first and third Captain America movies, but this is still a very good movie. We get Bucky brought back. Turns out he's been experimented on by Hydra for years, and he's basically this killing machine now with a metal arm. Crazy, I know. It's cool. We get to see a bit of his past come back through the Hydra infiltration of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is really cool, seeing that basically that S.H.I.E.L.D's been corrupt for all these years and no one knew, except for those who were corrupt. Yeah, this is a whereas Ant-Man was a heist movie, this is a lot of a spy movie. We see a lot of espionage, we see a lot of sneaking around, a lot of investigation. The boat scene at the beginning is great. We get to see George St. Pierre as Batroc the Leaper, who returns in Falcon the Winter Soldier. We get to see him do hand-to-hand combat with Captain America. I love that scene where Captain America sees Batroc and immediately takes off his shield to make it a fair fight. That was very good, and this movie is very good. Bucky, yeah, he's there. He does his thing. We get to see a glimpse of him, remembering himself at the end, helping Steve out. And I think in general, this was a great setup movie for what was to come with Civil War. And the next one, number 6, we have the original Iron Man, the one that started it all. When this came out in, I believe, 2007, 2008, this movie was huge. Marvel took a huge gamble on this. Iron Man was not a hugely popular character. It was the characters we had seen, the Hulk, the X-Men, Spider-Man. They took a huge risk with Iron Man. It really paid off, and one of the main reasons that it paid off was because of the guy they got to play the part, Robert Downey Jr. This was a big move for him. He had been dealing with drugs, alcohol addiction for years, and this was his kind of comeback. And what a comeback it was, because he played the character for the next however many MCU titles for years. And it's redefined his career. He's done a ton more roles through it: Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Dolittle, you name it. But none better than his portrayal of Tony Stark, genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist himself. Yeah, just seeing his journey in this movie. He starts off as this pompous, rich guy who doesn't really care about anyone but himself. And then his perspective changes as he's taken hostage by a terrorist group. And as he has to use his brain, this thing here, to invent the first Iron Man suit along with his friend that he makes in the prison, Jensen, who does not get enough respect in the MCU. I saw a thing on Reddit where they said that they wish Jensen was the guy that Tony sees in the Soul Realm in Endgame after he snaps. I think that would have been great. Great bookend to that character. If they didn't do it, it's whatever. But Jensen, underrated character. The villain in this movie, honestly, the Ironmonger, for the first MCU movie, it was like solid villain, like someone who seems like a friend but is actually a foe. Obadiah Stane been preying on our downfall. People, come on. Also, what a name, Obadiah Stane. Yeah, cool. Yeah, no, the first Iron Man, great setup for the rest of the MCU. Nick Fury comes in at the end, lets us know, wow, this isn't just one movie. This is going to be a whole freaking universe. And a universe it was. And it was all started from the first Iron Man. And that is why it comes in at number 6. And following that, number 5, we have the original Avengers movie. When this came out, it was such a huge deal. We had never seen characters from all these different movies come into one movie. To this kind of confirmed the universe for a lot of people, because we'd seen them all in their own individual movies. I mean, we've seen Black Widow introduced in Iron Man 2, but we hadn't seen them all in one movie. No one thought it could be done with 5 superheroes. Yeah, we got Hulk, Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, Black Widow, Hawkeye. We got 6. Yeah, 6. Yeah, and fighting against a foe we thought was gone, Loki, who 10 times better in the Avengers. He was great. Oh my god, the action in this movie, that team up scene where they all come together for the first time in New York. Phil Coulson's death that brings him, death, air quotes, that brings them together. That was amazing. It seems like it's smaller scale now because of what happens later on in the MCU, but the first Avengers movie knocked it out of the park. One of my favorite MCU movies. Great to watch. The ending with, oh my god, when Iron Man flies the missile into the wormhole and blows up the ship. That was amazing. That was incredible. And the post-credit scene with the shawarma, everything about the first Avengers was great. They nailed it. And the fact that they nailed it really cemented that a universe like this could be done. That is why in future Marvel and Avengers movies, we see so many characters introduced, because they knew they could. And this set the universe up for that. And okay, so now at number 4, we have Thor Ragnarok. Now, if you haven't seen Thor Ragnarok, this is probably the funniest MCU movie. This totally redid Thor's character and just the tone of the Thor movies in general, mainly through the director Taika Waititi, also known for Jojo Rabbit, another great movie he's directed, and I believe it was adapted from another work, but he did also write it. But yeah, Thor Ragnarok, excellent movie. Right from the beginning, you see that it's just a different vibe than any other Thor movie. We get to see Hulk in it. We get to see some of the past of Asgard that we hadn't seen before, with Odin's previous child, Hela, the goddess of death. And once again, we get to see an alien world with Sakaar. Jeff Goldblum's in it as the Grand Master. And Thor really just comes into his own in this one. as the god of thunder, but not just the god of thunder, but as the king of his people, the king of Asgard. And Loki really does a 180 in this, as he's always kind of faked being good, but in this, at the end, you can tell he's really turned a new page, and he wants to help his brother and his people, and it's great to see. And this also has one of the greatest post-credit scenes as well, where we see Thanos' ship looming on the horizon, just letting us know that what's happening next is going to be messed up. And next up, at number 3, we have Captain America Civil War, aka Avengers 2.5. A lot of people would rank Winter Soldier better than Civil War, but I love Civil War. It is one of my favorite Marvel movies. It's the best Captain America movie, in my opinion, and that is because the villain is not who we think it is. The villain is each other, people. Well, the main villain causes the villain to be each other. Baron Zemo is the main villain, but his plan pits the Avengers against each other through the Sokovia Accords that are initially put in place by Iron Man and Thunderbolt Ross. But yeah, just seeing the Iron Man and Captain America, they both believe in the same thing. They both believe in peace. But Iron Man believes in more regulated peace, whereas Captain America believes in peace by our own hands. Like, we should be able to make that peace. And both of them are right in their beliefs, but we see the conflict it creates, mainly through Iron Man wanting to imprison Bucky, and then the ultimate reveal that Bucky was the one that killed Tony Stark's parents. Spoiler alert. That part really just cemented for Tony that, wow, this guy kept this from me, and this guy killed my parents. Yeah, I don't care who they are. And that ending part where Tony Stark says, "That's my dad made that shield. That's not yours." And then Captain America just drops it. In the moment he's like, "Yeah, like I can't take this." Like, I don't even know what I'm saying, man. This movie's too good. It also introduces Spider-Man into the MCU for the first time when he lands on that truck and with Captain America's shield in the hand, he's like, "Hi, everybody." That was so good. And then when the Queen's title card comes up, Black Panther gets introduced in this. Oh my god, so cool when he whips out the claws on him, and then when he every word Chadwick Boseman says in every movie in the MCU and every movie he's been in is just amazing. When he's in the back of the car and he's like, "Captain Rogers, how long do you think you can keep your friend alive?" Or when Clint shoots the arrow at him and he catches it, and Clint's like, "I don't think we've met yet. My name's Clint." And he shoots the arrow. Black Panther catches it and says, "I don't care." Like, come on. This movie is just amazing. And that's why it comes in at number 3. Number 2. Now, I'm going to give you a hint. Number 1 and 2 are the 2 newest Avengers movies. But what order are they in? At number 2, we have Avengers Endgame. Yeah. Endgame's going to come in at number 2, even though it's the amazing, so near perfect conclusion to the Infinity Saga. Endgame is slightly worse than Infinity War. They're neck and neck. Let's be real here. But that should not take away anything from Endgame. This was the perfect conclusion to this saga. Everyone going in thought Captain America was going to be the one to sacrifice it all. But no, it was Iron Man. That scene, just whenever I watch that scene back of him snapping, it was so... Seeing that was the greatest in theater experience I've ever had, was watching Endgame after waiting a whole year, after seeing all of these heroes dusted, and then seeing Iron Man snap his fingers and sacrifice himself for the world, the universe. That in itself puts this movie at least in the top 3. But the entire thing, the whole time travel aspect, going back to 2012, seeing them in the Avengers again, in the first Avengers, seeing them going back to the past, Tony Stark talking to his dad. "No amount of money ever bought a second time." That's an amazing quote. Fat Thor, a lot of people didn't like Fat Thor. I respect it because you get to see exactly what messing up and losing that fight did for him when he felt like it was all his fault. And that opening scene, I never thought that the Thanos they were fighting in Endgame would be a past version of himself. Because when Thor cut off Thanos' head, I was like, wait, what? How are they going to fight him now? He's dead. But obviously that worked itself out. But no, Endgame, oh my, I didn't even mention when Captain America, the payoff from when he nudged that hammer in Age of Ultron and then catches it in Endgame. My pants were a little wet. Cut that. This movie is incredible. It's one of my favorite movies, experience wise. Movie wise, probably not, but just enjoyment wise, this might be number one. But then that brings us to number one, the one where everyone dies, half of everyone dies. Avengers Infinity War. Now, this movie, this was the, what did they call it at the time? It was the biggest crossover event in cinematic history, and that was correct because this movie brought everyone from the MCU except Ant-Man and Hawkeye because they show up in Endgame, of course. I forgot to mention they show up in Endgame. But yeah, this was crazy seeing all these heroes come together and the way they intricately brought them together. Like, Tony Stark's out for a walk in the park. Doctor Strange pulls up. Hey, the fate of the universe is on the line. Bro, it's a Sunday morning, but that's besides the point. Uh, the opening scene where we just see half of the Asgardians on that ship of refugees. In the last movie, they had just escaped Asgard. It looked so hopeful, and now we see half of them dead. Loki and Heimdall, mainly Loki. Heimdall, eat yourself, but respect. But let's be real, Loki's death, when we see that it wasn't like what's the word? When it wasn't a fake Loki that died, we realized, wow, he's really gone. Of course, now the Loki series, but that's later on. That's an end game where we see a past Loki escape. But yeah, no, him trying to defeat Thanos by stabbing him, futile effort. Like, that was never going to work. But the fact that he even tried that just shows the kind of character that Loki had become since the very beginning, where he was just this trickster that wanted to mess everything up and destroy worlds. Really showed Loki's character develop. We get to see all these storylines going on. We get to see the fight on Titan. We get to see the fight in Wakanda. That was one of the when Okoye and M'Baku were talking. M'Baku says, "This will be the end of Wakanda," and then Okoye says, "Then it will be the noblest ending in history." Chills, people, chills. That fight in Wakanda was insane. We see the heroes lose for probably the first time in the MCU. The movie ends with them losing, which was crazy because it seems like they're about to win. Because at the time I didn't know, because I know it was originally going to be Infinity War Part 1 and 2, but they said later that they were not going to do that anymore and they were just going to make it two separate movies. So at first I maybe thought that this one movie would be just a whole story. I didn't realize that it would be continued in another one. So when Thor threw his Stormbreaker axe at Thanos, I thought, oh, well, that's kind of anticlimactic, to be honest. I thought Tony Stark would get the killing blow. And when I thought he died initially on Titan, Tony Stark, I was like, oh, that's kind of a bad way to kill like the main guy like that. But then when Thanos says you should have aimed for the head, and then Thor just says no, and then everyone, I almost had who died spoiled for me because someone said, "Wow, that's a long list," and I was like, "No way, they're joking." Spider-Man, I cried, man. Like that was messed up. He just got there. Black Panther. Who else? The Falcon, Scarlet Witch, Vision got. We don't talk about that. Yeah, the ending of this movie just I for days I was wondering what the hell I had just watched. But yeah, Infinity War did things to me that should never be done, but it was an amazing experience nonetheless. Endgame was probably my best in theater experience just because everyone was so hyped and there was like cheering during the movie and everything. And just the waiting and the anticipation of waiting that whole year, wondering what the conclusion would be, and then seeing it. It felt like almost an out of body experience. It felt like I was dreaming because I dreamt before of like seeing um like Marvel movies that didn't exist, but this felt like that. But I was watching it, and it was incredible. So Endgame was a better in theater experience. Infinity War, amazing in theater experience. Besides this one kid in the back of the theater, oh my god, so a joke would happen, everyone would laugh, haha, and this kid 10 seconds after, and then like look, and then the girls in the theater were like, oh my god, it's so cute. I'm like, shut up. Anyways, that brings us to the end of my top 23 MCU movie list. I'm really looking forward to the future of the MCU. We got Black Widow, looking forward to that, although some critics are saying might not be the best. It's too bad. But I'm not gonna let that cloud my judgment. I'm looking forward to it still. We have Eternals, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. We got Loki going on right now, which just had its best episode. Super hyped for next Wednesday, or I guess this coming Wednesday now. We also got, how could I forget, the Spider-Man 3, probably going to be my most anticipated one. And then, yeah, Ant-Man the Lost Quantum Mania, Fantastic Four, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. We have so much MCU content to look forward to, and I'm so excited to talk about that on my channel. I'm telling you, that's Spider-Man 3 week. Whew, we might do like a whole month, a whole Spider month. Yeah, we're doing countdown to MCU Christmas that month. Let's go, because it comes out on December 20 something, I believe. But yeah, guys. Oh, before I end this episode, I want to make sure you're following me on social media. So Instagram, we now have an official Instagram for the show. It is at Film Time with Fava. No spaces, no underscores. It's straight up Film Time with Fava on Instagram. I'm planning on making a Twitter for that too. My personal Instagram is at Favalicious. My Twitter is at @a_fav24. Go follow me there. I'm posting clips. I'm posting news about the show, news about everything. But the clips are really funny. If you don't want to sit through the whole thing and you just want the meat and potatoes, the funny bits, go watch those clips. Those things are hilarious and you will not be disappointed. Lots of zoom ins, air horns, whatnot. You'll love it. But yeah, besides that, guys, thank you so much for watching all these episodes. Can't believe it's already been 5 episodes. Didn't think I'd make it this far. Here's to 5 more. Now here's to 50 more. Let's go for that, eh? Let's go for some big things. I'll have a 10th episode will be a special one. Fifth, you guys believed in me. Anyways, that's gonna just about do it, guys. Thank you for watching this episode. We got the Marvel poster in the back. We got the Fred VanVleet jersey. It's all good vibes. We got the bucket hat. We're chilling out here. Thanks for watching. I'm Anthony Fava, and as you know, this is as real as it gets.